Right now, D&D players have to choose. Easy but ugly tools like Roll20 or beautiful but expensive tools like Talespire. But what if I told you Hytale, which just launched today, might be the bridge between them? Look at this tweet from the developers. Years ago, they polled the community about tabletop features. While they didn't build a dedicated D&D mode, they acknowledged that the engine should be flexible enough to handle dice, sheets, and minis. The potential is hidden in the modding API, and now that the game is out, we can finally see if it works. To understand the weight of this release, you have to remember, Hytale wasn't a game, it was a meme. It started as a dream project by Hypixel, but after Riot Games bought them, the game vanished. We went years with barely any updates, people literally grew up, graduated college, and got married while waiting for this game. During that silence, Riot made a controversial decision. They tried to rewrite the entire game in C++. Now, if you aren't a programmer, here's why that was terrifying. The Minecraft modding community lives and breathes Java. By switching to C++, Riot was effectively building a wall that would keep 90% of the community out. It was shaping up to be a polished, corporate product, but it would have lost the soul that makes modding possible. That is why today is so exciting. When Simon, the founder of Hypixel, bought the IP back, he didn't just release the game. He threw out years of Riot's corporate code and reverted to the original legacy engine. He gave us the Java and C# version back. He literally saved the modding scene before the game even launched. The biggest argument I hear against using Hytale for D&D is the perspective. It's an action RPG, I can't play D&D looking out of my character's eyes. You need a tactical view. Well, look at this. This is a mod that pulls the camera out of the player's head and hovers it directly above them. As they move, the camera tracks them perfectly, turning the game into a top-down dungeon crawler. Now, does this have a complex D&D grid yet? No. But look at what it does prove. It proves that we aren't stuck in first or third person mode. The engine allows us to change the camera angle to whatever we need. If a modder can force the game to look like this for a roguelike, creating a tactical mode where you look down at a battle map should be incredibly easy. The hard work is already done, but the real selling point here is the atmosphere. Hytale's engine handles dynamic colored light sources and real-time shadows. In Roll20, darkness is just a black shape covering the map. In Hytale, darkness is an actual shadow. It creates a mood you just can't get in a 2D tool. You aren't just moving a token through a spreadsheet, you are moving through a living, breathing dungeon. But getting the camera right is only half the battle. If you've ever DM'd in 3D before, you know the real nightmare isn't playing the game, it's building it. In high-fidelity tools like Talespire, building a map is a full-time job. You are dragging and dropping every single wall, every tree, and every rock by hand. To make a simple forest, you have to click 500 times. Hytale solves this by remembering its roots. It's built on blocks. This means you aren't just a set dresser, you are a world builder. You have access to world edit style tools right out of the box. Do you want a forest? You don't place trees one by one. You grab a forest brush and paint them onto the terrain in seconds. Do you want a castle? You don't stack bricks. You copy an entire fortress from a prefab menu and stamp it into the world. Because the engine is procedural, you can generate infinite terrain instantly. You can carve out a cave system, fill it with lava, and build a goblin city in 10 minutes, something that would take 10 hours in any other 3D engine. This is the difference between sculpting and generating. And for a DM with limited prep time, that speed is the only thing that matters. So the visual potential is there, but for a VTT to work, it needs to handle the boring stuff too. The math. Right now, if you play in 3D tools like Talespire or Tabletop Simulator, you usually suffer from the Alt-Tab problem. You have the beautiful 3D map on one monitor, but your character sheet is stuck on a website like D&D Beyond on the other. The game is usually just a visualizer, it doesn't actually know your stats. This is where Hytale's engine could change the game. The developers have confirmed they are using NoesisGUI. That sounds technical, but it means modders have the tools to build a fully functional D&D character sheet that lives inside the game code, not just as a web overlay. Imagine this, you want to swing your sword. Instead of typing /roll or clicking a Chrome tab, you could just click attack on a custom Hytale HUD. Because the UI would be native, the game could read your strength score directly from the sheet, calculate the hit, roll the 3D dice, and apply the damage to the goblin's health bar automatically. It has the potential to unify the game and the paperwork into one screen. And that is a level of integration current 3D VTTs are still struggling to reach. Beyond the math and the UI, there is the biggest bottleneck for any DM: the content. In high-fidelity games like Talespire, you are largely limited to the models the developers provide. If you want a specific undead mind flayer and they haven't made one, you have to sculpt it in a 3D software like Blender. It takes weeks of work. Hytale flips this problem on its head by officially supporting Blockbench. Blockbench is the industry standard for low poly modeling, and Hytale even released an official plugin for it. This is huge because it changes the workflow from sculpting clay to building with digital Legos. You don't need to be a professional artist to make a goblin in Blockbench. You can model a custom monster, paint it, and animate it in one afternoon. The art style itself lowers the barrier to entry, meaning the community can pump out thousands of free asset packs way faster than high-fidelity competitors can. But the real power isn't just making the monster, it's how you introduce it. In a normal VTT, the DM says you hear a roar. In Hytale, the engine supports server-controlled cameras. Because the server controls the game state, a DM could theoretically set up a trigger zone. When the players walk into the boss room, the server could lock the doors, dim the lights, and force everyone's camera to snap to the ceiling where the dragon is waking up. You stop being just a narrator and start being a director. That is a level of immersion that simply doesn't exist in this space right now. There is one factor we haven't talked about yet, and it's actually more important than the lighting, the code, or the UI. It's the community. Think about why so many of these 3D projects fail. They build amazing engines, but they become ghost towns. If you want a specific castle map or a specific monster, you usually have to make it yourself because the player base is too small to build a library of content. However, Hytale has a cheat code. It shares the same DNA as the Minecraft modding community. We are talking about an army of creators who have spent the last decade building in Java and Blockbench. These people aren't starting from scratch, they are just moving next door. The day Hytale opens its modding tools, you aren't going to get 10 guys making maps. You are going to get thousands. This matters because a platform is only as good as its marketplace. Roll20 is king because it has thousands of asset packs. Hytale is the only 3D engine that has a workforce large enough to compete with that. We don't just need better tech, we need more stuff. And this is the only game that brings the army required to build it. So is Hytale the future of tabletop? Maybe, but at the end of the day, an engine like this is just a table, and a table is absolutely useless without a story to tell on it. That is exactly what this channel is for. I started here because I wanted to show you the potential of where our games are going. But from here on out, we are diving into the history, the legends, and the deep lore of the Forgotten Realms. We've built the table, now let's play. If you want to catch the first deep dive into the lore, hit subscribe and I'll see you at the table.